The house was quiet except for the sound of rain ticking against the conservatory glass. Emily sat at the long oak table, a single candle flickering between her and Daniel. He poured wine with the grace of a man who'd done this 1,000 times before, his silver hair catching the light in a way that made him look almost ethereal. He smiled, slow and deliberate, to us, to never feeling our age. Emily lifted her glass but hesitated. His eyes didn't move from her face. They lingered too long, searching, memorizing. It wasn't affection. It was study. When she met Daniel at a gallery opening 2 years earlier, he'd seemed like everything she wasn't. Composed, worldly, confident. He'd promised stability, a life without chaos. But as the months turned to years, Emily started to notice that Daniel's love felt more like surveillance. He decided what she wore, who she met, when she spoke. Every choice came with his quiet correction, a disguised command wrapped in affection. Tonight, the candlelight twisted his features, and she wondered if the man across from her was a stranger she had mistaken for safety. "You're quiet," he said, slicing into his steak. "I'm tired," she replied, forcing a smile. "You've been tired often. Maybe it's all that screen time. You should stay off your phone more." Her stomach tightened. The comment seemed harmless, yet it dripped with a strange authority. She excused herself and went upstairs, her pulse sharp in her ears. The bedroom smelled faintly of Daniel's cologne, cedar and smoke. On his desk, a drawer stood slightly open. She shouldn't have looked, but she did. Inside lay a photograph, edges burned as if someone tried to destroy it. The woman in the picture was young, dark-haired, smiling beneath the same necklace Emily wore now. The identical silver locket, the one Daniel had said was uniquely chosen for her. Her hands shook as she traced the woman's face. There was something in the eyes, defiance, maybe fear. "Emily." Daniel's voice rose from downstairs, calm but firm. She stuffed the photo into her pocket and shut the drawer. Her breath caught as she saw the candlelight flicker across the hallway wall, his shadow moving closer. When he appeared at the door, his tone was gentle. "What are you doing up here? Just fixing my hair." He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the wine on his breath. His gaze dropped to her pocket, where the faint corner of the photograph peeked out. Daniel smiled. But it wasn't the kind of smile she remembered from their wedding photos. "Next time," he said softly. "You should ask before touching my things." Emily froze, her heart hammering. Downstairs, the candle's flame bent under a sudden gust of wind, sending their shadows stretching long and broken across the walls, as if the house itself had begun to take sides. And somewhere in that darkness, she realized she wasn't being loved. She was being watched. The house had changed since that night. It no longer felt like a home, but a stage where silence performed its cruelest tricks. Emily began noticing sounds she couldn't explain. Faint murmurs that drifted through the walls long after Daniel had gone to his study. At first, she told herself it was the wind, the old pipes, anything but him. Yet every whisper carried the same low tone, steady and intimate, like a conversation she wasn't meant to hear. One night, she followed the sound. The hallway was dark, lit only by the blue glow bleeding from under Daniel's study door. Her bare feet pressed quietly against the floorboards, her pulse quickening as the voice became clearer. A woman's laughter. Emily froze. The laugh was light, familiar in a way that scraped at memory. She leaned closer, her ear just beside the door. Daniel's voice followed, softer, almost affectionate. "Don't worry. She doesn't suspect a thing." Her throat tightened. The whispering stopped. The glow dimmed. She stepped back just as the handle turned. Daniel appeared in the doorway, his expression calm, eyes calculating. "Couldn't sleep again?" he asked, tone measured. "I heard voices." He smiled faintly. "You've been anxious lately." "It's probably the house settling. Old places do that." "It was a woman," she said. "You were speaking to someone." His smile didn't falter. "You think I'm hiding a woman inside these walls?" The sharpness in his voice made her step back. He reached out, brushing her shoulder. Gentle, possessive. "You mustn't let your imagination run wild, my love." "You're starting to sound unwell," she said nothing, but something inside her hardened. The next day, while Daniel was out, Emily crept into the study. The laptop sat open on the desk, still humming faintly warm. She checked his call history, deleted entries, an empty recycle bin, a faint scent of perfume she didn't wear. She didn't find the woman's name, but she found something else. A small drawer under the desk lined with cassette tapes, each labeled by date. The earliest marked 6 months before their wedding. She slipped one into her coat pocket. That night when Daniel showered, she pressed play. The tape hissed before his voice filled the room. "You'll always be mine, even if you leave." Then silence. Her hands trembled. That wasn't love. It was ownership. When Daniel emerged from the bathroom, she hid the tape under her pillow. He smiled as he slipped into bed, the same calm mask as always. But Emily kept her eyes open, listening. The whispers had stopped inside the walls, yet they had begun inside her head. The morning of her 30th birthday arrived cold and gray. Daniel greeted Emily with breakfast in bed, the scent of coffee masking the tension that had clung to them for weeks. He kissed her forehead and said, "Pack light. We're going away. Somewhere quiet, just us." She smiled because that was what he wanted. But her chest felt tight, her instincts whispering warnings she didn't yet have the courage to name. When he left to load the car, she checked the email confirmation he'd printed and tucked into the travel folder. The booking was for 2 nights at a countryside resort, but the names froze her blood. Daniel Harrow and Isabella Kent, not Emily Harrow. Isabella. Her mind reeled. She tore the paper from the folder, heart racing. When Daniel returned, she stood in the doorway, holding the evidence between trembling fingers. "Who's Isabella?" He blinked once, his calm too deliberate. "It's a clerical error. I called the hotel," she said, voice cracking. "They said she confirmed the spa treatment." The silence that followed was colder than the rain beginning to fall outside. Daniel's eyes hardened, all gentleness gone. He stepped closer, his voice dropping into something unrecognizable. "You shouldn't snoop. Emily, it makes you difficult to love." When she refused to move, his hand struck her face with surgical precision. Not rage, but punishment. The shock sent her stumbling back, tasting iron. She ran before he could speak again, bursting into the storm, barefoot, phone clutched to her chest. Her call connected. "Clara," static drowned her words. The road blurred through tears, headlights slicing through the darkness. Then a sound, tires screeching. A cry, a sudden silence. Her phone landed face down in the mud. Screen glowing a final message. Call ended. 3 days after the storm, Daniel Harrow stood on his doorstep as flashing blue lights painted his face in cold rhythm. His shirt was perfectly pressed, his voice cracked at rehearsed intervals. "She just vanished," he told the officers. "We argued she needed air, and I thought she'd come back." Detective Laura Keene watched him closely. The man didn't look like someone who had lost his wife. He looked like someone performing the idea of loss. His eyes darted not with fear, but with calculation. Inside, the house felt staged. The bed was made too neatly. A single photograph of Emily stood on the mantel, the only one in sight. No suitcase was missing, no toothbrush, no overnight bag. Laura scribbled a note in her pad. "When exactly did you last see her?" "Friday evening," Daniel said. "We were meant to leave for a weekend trip, but she became upset. She ran out into the rain. I waited, I searched. Then I called you." The report showed he called the police 72 hours later. The hotel confirmed no booking under his wife's name. Laura glanced toward the driveway. The car tires were clean, untouched by mud. Outside, reporters had begun to gather. Daniel stepped into the drizzle, his face the perfect mask of grief. "If anyone knows where Emily is, please bring her home," he said, voice trembling just enough for the cameras. Laura's gaze never left him. His tone was wrong. His pauses too precise. She'd seen liars before, but Daniel's deceit had artistry. That night, as she filed her report, she circled 2 words in red ink, "Timeline false." Behind her, a missing poster of Emily fluttered against the rain-streaked window, the ink beginning to bleed, as if the truth itself was trying to escape. Detective Laura Keene returned to the Harrow residence under the guise of a follow-up search. Daniel greeted her at the door with his familiar calm, though his smile had begun to fracture. "You've searched every inch already," he said. "Every inch we were meant to see," Laura replied. Her gaze swept over the study. Daniel's sanctuary of order. Books arranged by color, curtains drawn tight, a faint smell of wax and cedar. Something about the room felt deliberate, as if every surface had been rehearsed. She ran her hand along the far wall. Hollow. Too hollow. A small indentation near the skirting board caught the light from her torch. She pressed. A click sounded, sharp and mechanical. The panel slid open to reveal a narrow passage no wider than a shoulder. The air was stale, tinged with candle smoke and damp paper. Daniel's voice rose behind her, strained. "You can't go in there. It's private." Laura stepped inside. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness, landing on a collection of Polaroids pinned in perfect rows. Each one captured Emily in mundane moments, brushing her hair, reading, sleeping. Candles lined the floor beneath them. Wax pooled like melted bone. At the center stood a desk with an old tape recorder. Its red light blinked, waiting. Laura pressed play. Emily's voice filled the air, trembling and raw. "Please, Daniel, stop. You're hurting me." The sound cracked into static before cutting off. Daniel appeared in the doorway, his mask of civility slipping entirely. "It was part of therapy," he said quickly. "Exposure work." She agreed to it. Laura faced him, steady. "You recorded your wife's fear and called it healing." He smiled then, hollow and distant. "She needed boundaries. I gave her form." As Laura photographed the scene, the recorder clicked again, playing another tape unprompted. A man's whisper seeped through the static. "You'll never leave me." Laura switched off the device. The silence felt heavier than any scream. Outside, the wind pressed against the windows like a heartbeat, and she realized the house itself was a witness that had been trying to confess. Detective Laura sat in a dim cafe near the station, the smell of burnt espresso heavy in the air. A woman entered quietly, her posture tight, face hidden beneath a scarf and dark glasses. When she removed them, Laura felt the room shrink. Clara Harrow. The woman from the video calls. The woman Daniel claimed was dead. Her voice shook as she spoke. "He told everyone I drowned. My family held a funeral. I had to disappear." Laura leaned forward. "How did you survive?" Clara's fingers fidgeted with the handle of her cup. "He tried to strangle me. Said if he couldn't have me, no one would. I escaped while he thought I was gone for good. I changed my name. I've been living like a ghost since." She slid a worn newspaper clipping across the table. The headline read, "Local woman missing, husband cleared." Beneath it, Daniel's smiling face stared back, framed by sympathy. Laura's pulse quickened. "He did it again, didn't he?" Clara nodded. Emily reminded him of me. Same hair, same necklace. He's repeating the pattern. The cafe's hum of voices felt distant now, drowned by the weight of her words. Clara's eyes glistened, haunted yet fierce. "If I speak publicly, he'll find me. But if I stay silent, she'll stay buried as I once was." Laura reached for her hand. "You're not alone this time." Clara inhaled deeply, steadying herself. "Then I'll help you. But you need to understand. He plans everything. Every gesture, every lie. He doesn't lose control, and he decides when to show it." Outside, the rain began again, streaking the window like smudged ink. Laura looked at Clara's trembling reflection and saw the story forming. 2 wives, 1 truth. The interrogation room was silent, except for the steady hum of the fluorescent light above. Daniel Harrow sat at the table, wrists bound, eyes fixed on the mirrored glass ahead. Detective Laura entered, a folder tucked under her arm. Behind her, 2 officers watched with unreadable expressions. "Clara Harrow," she began, "alive, speaking, telling us everything you did to her." Daniel didn't flinch. His lips parted in what could have been a smile. She always had a flair for drama. Laura dropped a series of photographs in front of him. Each one showed Emily, smiling, laughing, living. Then finally the Polaroids from the secret room. His eyes twitched at the sight of them, a rare crack in his composure. "You recorded her fear," Laura said. "You watched her sleep. You called it therapy. Was that what you called Clara's bruises too?" His fingers tightened against the table. "You don't understand love," he said quietly. "You think it's kind. It isn't. It's possession. It's permanence." Laura's voice hardened. "Where is she?" For the first time, Daniel looked at her. His tone was calm, almost tender. "She wanted peace. I gave it to her. Under the oak by the lake. She always said it felt like home there. The room stilled. That night, officers combed through the woodland on the outskirts of Devonshire. Flashlights cut through mist and rain, illuminating the gnarled roots of the old oak tree. A shovel struck earth, dull and final. A shout followed, then silence. Laura stood at the edge of the dig site as a fragment of fabric surfaced. A piece of Emily's coat, faded and torn. Her breath caught as she watched the soil give up its secret. Back at the station, Daniel waited, calm once again. "She'll never really leave me," he said softly. "You'll see. She's part of the earth now." Laura stared at him through the glass, her jaw tight. The case had cracked open, but something darker had just begun. Months passed, yet the Harrow case refused to fade. The courtroom had emptied, the cameras gone, but the echoes of Emily's voice still lingered in the evidence room. Detective Laura Keene sat alone at her desk, the winter light creeping across the floor, turning dust into snowflakes of silence. Before her lay a small stack of cassette tapes. Each one marked in Emily's handwriting. Dates, times, small fragments of fear frozen in ink. Laura pressed play. The tape hissed before the voice came alive. "If something happens to me, it won't be an accident. He says he loves me, but love shouldn't make you afraid to breathe." Laura's hand tightened around her pen. The calmness in Emily's tone was what haunted her most. It wasn't panic. It was resignation. The voice of a woman who had already understood her ending. Another click. "I'm leaving tomorrow. He'll be angry, but I have to go. If anyone hears this, please tell the truth. Don't let him turn it into a story about a fragile wife who wandered off." The sound of rain followed, faint but real, bleeding through the tape. The last moment of a life shrinking into static. Laura closed her eyes. She could picture the candlelight, the photographs, the silent house pretending to mourn. Every recording played like a confession from the dead, each word a blade cutting through Daniel's lies. At the trial, those tapes became the heartbeat of justice. Jurors wept as Emily's voice filled the courtroom. When the verdict came, Daniel stood motionless. Life imprisonment. No appeal, no tears. Only the faint curl of a smile, as though he still believed she belonged to him. Weeks later, Laura visited the lake where Emily had been found. The wind rippled across the water, whispering through the branches of the oak. She placed a recorder at the base of the tree, pressed play, and let Emily's voice drift into the open air. "Love shouldn't hurt," the tape said softly. "It shouldn't take your name, your breath, your life." The words faded into the wind, carried somewhere beyond reach. Laura turned toward the path, her shadow long against the ground. Behind her, the recorder's red light flickered once, as if the ghost of the recording was still trying to speak.